Welcome to InFocus with Ejaz. This program comes to you from the Center for Security, Strategy and Policy Research. A word about CESPA. It's an autonomous policy research center housed in the University of Lahore, and it tackles issues that impact contemporary security and strategic developments. And this program, as some of the past viewers know, is part of that effort. Now, we're going to discuss the standoff between Israel and Iran. And after much speculation and, shall I say, trepidation around the world regarding Iran's possible response to an illegal Israeli drone strike on Tehran's consulate building in Damascus, this happened on 1st April, and the reason I call it an illegal strike is because the consulate buildings and the embassy buildings are considered the territory of that country. So post-April 1, Iran launched a direct attack from its own soil on Israel, and this was on the night of 13th April. The attack, they codenamed it a True Promise. The pre-attack speculation actually revolved around whether Iran would attack Israel directly or bide its time and go for the strategy of the indirect approach, to use Little Hart's term. Now, Iran's traditional preference has been for strategic restraint and indirect actions. I mean, the only possible exception that I can think of was Iran's targeting of U.S. bases in Iraq after a U.S. drone strike killed Major General Qasem Soleimani, was an IRGC, which is the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps officer, and he was also the top commander of the Quds Force. That's part of the IRGC, but is a special force within the IRGC. But then, too, Iran did not directly hit America. It hit the U.S. bases in Iraq. Now, after the Iranian attack, after the 13th April Iranian attack, speculation shifted to how Israel would react. The U.S. President Joe Biden told Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, "You have a win, take it." Biden also stated that the U.S. would not support Israel in a war against Iran, but other actions and statements cast a shadow on Biden's statement. On the intervening night of Thursday and Friday, unofficial U.S. military sources told one of the U.S. channels, CBS, which is a channel affiliated with the BBC in London also, that Israel had struck a military facility near Isfahan. Isfahan is almost in central Iran, just slightly to the west of central Iran, if we want to be more specific. And this was, as per sources, a limited strike. Now, the Iranian officials and state media reported 3 drones being taken out with no damage on the ground. Neither Israel nor the U.S. Department of Defense has officially commented up until now on the event. To discuss why Iran went for a direct attack on Israel and what could be the significance of Israel's limited ingress, I have with me Dr. Sina Azodi. Dr. Azodi is visiting scholar and a professional lecturer of international affairs at the George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs, where he teaches a graduate course on Iran's foreign policy in the Middle East. And his research includes international security, nuclear non-proliferation, and U.S.-Iran relations. His doctoral dissertation, Iran's Nuclear Program, A Struggle for Security and Modernity, traces the evolution, you have guessed it, of Iran's nuclear program. With him is Dr. Valeriia Gergiieva, who currently serves as a visiting research fellow contributing to the Arms Control and Emerging Technologies Project at the Institute for Peace, Research and Security Policy at the University of Hamburg. Concurrently, she holds the position of non-resident research fellow at the Odesa Center for Nonproliferation. In the fall of 2019, Dr. Gergiieva was appointed as a visiting fellow at the James Martin Center for Nonproliferation Studies in Monterey. Her research focuses on non-proliferation, disarmament, and nuclear programs of Iran and North Korea. So thank you so much for both of you scholars to be on this program. Let me begin with Dr. Gergiieva here, and also begin in the reverse with Israel's retaliation. Now, so the question really is, in many ways, why send a couple of missiles and a few drones it's just signaling that Israel is not deterred by Iran, or possibly as a probe to check the air defense capability and possible target coordinates for a relatively bigger attack sometimes in the future. I mean, we know there was much pressure on Israel regarding escalatory concerns. Or what's the point of this, especially because it seems to me that this direct confrontation episode might be over for now?
Yes, thank you so much for introduction and for having me today here. So actually, I think first of all, I will answer the question, why now? Yes, why before it was between proxies? Yes, there was no direct confrontation on their soils. What changed since 2020? I guess one of the answers is that the self-perception of Iran has changed, because since the Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Iran and Russia, they have like closer relationships than ever, and of course they were quite close. They were partners for decades, but it was something another. Now they are, I can tell it, full-fledged partners. Yes, military partners. It's like both parties needs each other. Iran is supplier of drones and possibly in the future like missile supplier. So this self-perception.
So just a quick interjection. Apologies, but when you say the close partners, I mean they have been very close partners since at least 2013 to late 2012 in Syria. The Iranians were supporting the Bashar al-Assad regime. Then the Russians came in, and so they've been like cheek by jowl. And of course, they also have these military ties with the Iranians exporting these drones, especially the direct attack munitions, to the Russians. So as far as their relations are concerned, they kind of go back a long way.
Yes, so it was before, but and now Russia needs Iran more than ever. So it's not only Iran needs Russia, and of course they were partners in the Syria and the proxies. It's also influenced, but anyway, like in 2010, since the GCPOA, Russia's support was less than. Before. That's why Iran also, it was one of the reasons to agree to the GCPOA, is to sign GCPOA, because when there is no partners, not like no partners, but lack of support from Russia and China, then Iran is more ready for negotiations. But at the moment, first, they are close partners in the military field. Also, Iran has a lot of significant success, yes, in its military program, its nuclear program. It's a threshold state now. It's not, Iran is different in its capabilities if to compare with 2018 or even like maybe 2020. And also, I think why now? So to answer the question, why now Iran decides to answer like a direct confrontation, because Iran feels that it's ready to settle red lines in the region.
So I'm gonna come to Iran, but let me also pull in Dr. Azodi here. So because I was trying to go in reverse, starting with the unofficially acknowledged. I mean, as I said in my opening, neither Israel nor the Pentagon has officially commented on this supposed purported strike. So why do it in terms of like a limited strike, maybe a couple of missiles? We don't even know whether these were cruise missiles. We don't know whether these were ballistic missiles. We do know that there were some drones. What's the point of this? As I said in my question to Dr. Gergiieva, is it signaling that we will not be deterred? Is it a probe to just check the air defense capability and see possible future attack? Is it limited because of the pressure from the United States? So I know I'm putting a lot on the table, but I just want to get your take on this.
Sure. Well, I would say, well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's Great to be with you. I think it's a combination of all of them.
Okay.
Well, first of all, it is a signal to Iran that we are, if you're going to attack our territory, we're going to respond. And when you look at the statements coming out from the Israeli foreign minister, who wrote on Twitter that if Iran attacks us from its territory, we're going to attack Iranian territory. So that's like clear out there. And
Yeah.
two, there are different theories about what type of attack it was. Some people
Okay.
have suggested that it was an Israeli Air Force using standoff capabilities that they have. And this is like when you look at Senator Rubio's Twitter, he kind of suggested that Israelis have their own capabilities, that they don't have to enter Iranian airspace, which really suggests that it was a standoff attack, right? If it was an airstrike. Iranians, and I've seen, some small drones being shot down. Iranians are suggesting that there were there was some, the attack was with micro drones targeting someplace near the 8th Tactical Air Base near Isfahan, right? This is what they're suggesting, which means a lot of things. First of all, if you're using micro drones or small drones, this means that attack was conducted from Iranian mainland, that someone inside Iran conducted the attack, which sends the message that we have so much intelligence capabilities inside Iran that we get to attack your airbase. So I think, and even some people were joking that this is, the day that they chose for the attack was symbolic because it was Khamenei's birthday. He just
Yeah.
turned 85 yesterday, right? So I think it's a combination of all of these
Okay. So
together.
that's okay. So the about the timing, that's very interesting, and the also the point that if these were small drones or quadcopters, then someone from within Iran might have
Yes.
the Mossad assets or. But as far as the standoff strike issue is concerned, purely technically speaking, that's not possible because the maximum, like PL-15 has the maximum range with the Chinese standoff air-to-air missile and air-to-ground. It's a maximum range of about 135 to 150 kilometers. And so that still means that some Israeli strike package had to fly a long way from Israel. So I'm going to discount that. But I think this point about having someone inside, like, the way Fakhrizada's assassination was
Yes.
done, and the way certain other assassinations were done in Tehran. Fakhrizada's was outside Tehran, but there were others that were done inside. A couple of them in almost in central Tehran. So yeah, they've got their intelligence assets there. But here's the thing. Now let's get to Iran, because Dr. Gergiieva was talking about that. And so going back to what you were saying, Dr. Gergiieva, Iran, we know. It's like we don't have to go looking for it, but the Iranians post-attack made it very clear that this is what they said, quote unquote, new equation. New equation: if we are going to be attacked, we will hit back directly, which is one of the reasons that they did not use Hezbollah or Houthis or any of the militias in Syria or Iraq. And they chose not only to directly attack Israel, but attack Israel from Iranian soil. So they were making a point. Is that significant? You were talking about it, but I want to know how significant you think that is.
I think it's very significant because it demonstrates a certain shift in the Middle East. Because as I started to talk, is Iran demonstrating its red lines. Yes, so because lately, yes, there were like attacks on the IRGC commanders, generals. It became like more frequently. So it just demonstrates like what can happen. And actually, I was reading additional literature, try to understand how significant was Iranian strike on Israel's soil, because on one hand, it seems like Iran didn't want to cause much damage, because not to provoke further escalation. Because first of all, yes, it was a massive missile and drone attack, but anyway, Iran used like not the latest modern missiles. It used like quite older versions, which means like that it doesn't want to maybe spend like it's modern and not to cause too much damage. It's one. The second, of course, as everyone knows, there was notifications about that it's going to happen. So, and also Iranian side is clear that it wasn't a fail because it didn't reach yes any maybe significant target or any target at all, because our goal was just to demonstrate first one the red line, and the second one our enemies to spend resources on this, because actually Israel's, yes, it was successful air defense systems, but they spent a lot, and it's air defense system, it's more expensive, yes, and it takes more time to producing this than for Iran to produce those missiles. So actually Iranian side claims that it was successful, it was our goal, and it was not their goal to cause much damage. As Israeli side also, their goal wasn't like to cause much damage, to escalate this more and more. It was just like to demonstrate each other and maybe to rebuild that conventional deterrence between states in this case.
Okay, so let me now be a little more provocative, because both of you have worked and continue to work on the Iranian nuclear program also. Now, here's the thing, Dr. Azodi. The post-Iranian attack, there was a plethora of commentary in the Western press, and also, stuff put out by think tanks. And everyone was kind of, but some people were even celebrating the fact that 99%, as they said, 99% of the aerial attack package was taken out. Now, here's the thing. The Iranians used the same tactics as the Russians have been using against Ukraine, which is that you have a package that contains direct attack munitions, land attack, cruise, and ballistic missiles. And you send them in a way that they kind of reach the target, the intended target, almost simultaneously. And the cruise missiles and the drones are primarily diversionary to exhaust the ground air defenses, and the ballistic missiles to actually penetrate through the shield. Now, having said this, one of the things that Iran did, it had informed the United States two things. One, that it will attack. Two, that it will be counterforce targeting. We are not going to target the civilians of the cities. Now, the 48-hour window that the Israelis were talking about, the United States was talking about, the US allies were talking about, they were obviously picking up intelligence chatter themselves also, and they had also been informed. So it seems to me that in some ways, it was choreographed by, and this is a point that Dr. Gergiieva has also talked about, in terms of a choreographed attack, which could possibly be to show resolve, but not really to escalate, to also check the air defense umbrella. And this air defense umbrella that we're talking about is not just the probably relatively antiquated air defense umbrella of Iran. We're talking about the best that you can get in the world.
Absolutely.
Right? And to check whether they could penetrate that. And at least 7 to 10 ballistic missiles did penetrate that, right? And so they had essentially had 3 targets that they had identified: 2 air bases, Nevatim and Ramon, and an Israeli intelligence base in Jabal al-Sheikh, which is in the Israeli occupied territory that abuts Lebanon and Syria. Now, here's the thing. What if the 7 to 10 ballistic missiles that did penetrate through a global A2AD umbrella had strategic warheads on them? We know that the Iranians have enriched uranium up to 60%. That is, I'm sorry, my question has become, but I was just trying to position my question. 60%. They are a turn of the key away from actually acquiring weapons capability. So if we were to, as Dr. Gergiieva said, what is this new equation? I mean, what is this new resolve? What is this whole idea of saying, okay, you hit us, we are going to hit you back directly. And then you send a choreographed aerial package where you get 7 to 10 ballistic missiles to penetrate through this amazing A2AD shield. Your comments, Dr. Azodi, and then Dr. Gergiieva.
I think even with 60%, well, first you can create a chain reaction even with 60%. But I don't think that currently Iranians see any added utility to in making a bomb. The fact that they can always threaten dashing for the bomb is a security benefit for them. That if you attack me, and I just wrote for foreign policy that, look, if you attack me, I am only one step away from making the bomb. Do not make me go for the bomb. Because the thing is, if they do want to go for the bomb, they are actually going to risk a preventive strike by the United States and the Israelis. But again, by maintaining this nuclear weapons capability, first of all, they're enjoying the benefits of a security deterrence to some extent. And 2, they're not paying the costs of having an actual nuclear weapons arsenal. And, right. And I want to refer you to what the former president Hashemi Rafsanjani said once, that he said, once we can enrich uranium, the other countries will draw the proper conclusion, right? And this, I think, captures the Iranian thinking that, look, at any time in the future, they can go for the bomb. Right now, on April 19, 2024, I don't think they've reached that point that they think that this is the time to go for the bomb. A lot of people calculated or guessed that this is the best time for Iranians to sneak out and get the bomb. I always said they don't need the bomb, and they will not going to make the bomb unless something fundamentally changes in the region. If there's a direct attack against the Iranian mainland, something on a large scale, not something like we saw last night. If there's a fundamental change in the balance of power, like Saudis go for the bomb, or if one of Iran's main proxy forces, like Hezbollah, are severely weakened, then the Iranians think, okay, now our so-called forward defense strategy is not working. Our conventional deterrence has failed. We need to get the bomb.
Dr. Azodi, you basically agreed with me. I mean, I wasn't saying that they're going to make the bomb, right? All I was saying was that in terms of a longer trajectory, signaling, strategic signaling, and I'll take this to Dr. Gergiieva. The strategic signaling is that, the multiple things happening here through that choreographed attack. That, with tactical warheads, right, even with the accuracy of the missiles, and the Iranians have been working on the CEPs of their missiles for a long time, and they're pretty accurate. The fact is that a tactical warhead can only do this much damage and no more. But even a low yield strategic warhead can do much more damage. So if 7 to 8 ballistic missiles can penetrate through this absolutely amazing shield, then it becomes, at the end of the day, as far as the strategic warheads is concerned, it turns into a Maginot Line of sorts. But Dr. Gergiieva, the same question that we've discussed, and which I positioned with a longer sort of spiel. What do you think of that? You think that the Israeli planners and the United States and its allies would be thinking, well, see, if there is going to be an escalation, if some of the things that Dr. Azodi just talked about actually come to pass, that they would be pushing Iran towards that direction. Is Iran basically implying to everyone, don't push us to that point?
I agree with Dr. Azodi for 100%, of course. And just to add that to be a threshold state for Iran is the best solution and the best way out of the situation, because it is on the level when it can play cards, with the United States, with the Israeli, but still don't provoke them, yes, for some huge escalation. So it's Iran to change its mind. It really should be a significant shift in the region. So if United States together with Israeli will attack Iran, it will be a huge, massive attack. In this regard, it can change its policy. But otherwise, Iran, of course, wants to save its face, but it's also quite cautious country. It doesn't want to lose its head. Yeah? So it's all the time thinks twice or three times before doing something. So it's quite cautious. It has a big strategic patience, I would say, also. So at this regard, to be threshold state, it will be for Iran the best solution. And actually, United States and Israel, it understands it also. That's why there was not such a huge answering attack by Israel side, and that's why United States were quite also calm and not provocative much, because United States can be much more provocative and active in this regard, because it understands that in this regard Iran can maybe assume something or whatever, it can escalate the situation even more. So yeah, totally agree with Dr. Azodi.
Okay, so here's the thing. Now, these two situations and these two states are obviously, and no two situations are similar. And so I'm not going to press the point apart from what I'm just in terms of restraint. Now, what we have seen is that we've already agreed that there has been a shift from, in fact, you started by saying that there's been a shift from restraint to a new equation. So that's a shift. Having said that, after the attack, Iran did draw a line under that attack, saying that we are done. Mm-hmm. And so basically signaling to the other side that if you respond, then the onus for escalation is on you. Now, Dr. Azodi's point and your point about Iran being cautious is well taken, and I completely agree with that. However, if you are the best person actually to respond to this, but I'll take this to Dr. Azodi also. On up until 23rd February 2022, mm-hmm. Vladimir Putin had all the cards. France, Germany, everyone was rushing, talking to him. Ukrainians were also trying to figure out how to deal with the situation. And so he was kind of making everyone, snapping his fingers and asking them to sit, and everyone was sitting, and he says, stand up, and everyone was standing up. Then he crossed the Rubicon. On 24th February, he crossed the Rubicon. So my point being, once again, These are not similar situations. These are not similar states, geographically or in terms of capabilities and the rest of it. But what I'm saying is that at some point, like for instance, in the case of Iran, if things escalate, will that tip the balance in favor of moving beyond 60%? What was the balance or calculus for Putin to have suddenly moved from 23 February to 24th February? You know?
In the situation with Putin, it was why it happened, because it already happened once in 2014 when Putin
Correct.
came at Crimea.
But limited.
Yes, but it was so easy for him. Yes,
Yeah.
so it means that, okay, I took it. It's so easy. Why can't I take more? So initially, the plan for Putin, it was not a long-term, full-fledged war. It was like come to Ukraine, change government, yes, and took that part which he needed to take, yes, more. And also Russia and Iran, of course, they have different capabilities. Yes.
No, of course, which is why I
Yeah.
said this is not similar. But
In case with
Putin.
Putin, it was predicted even it was token that he would go further for a long time. But the case that for Putin, deterrence works because Putin, as Russia has nuclear weapons. Yes, Russia also control a lot of countries by using these oil gas also issue as a pressure. So in this regard, he has a lot of cards in his pockets to use. Yes, how to control. With Iran, it's a bit different because Iran was already for a long time sanctioned. Yes, so countries not dependent on its resources, and also Iran doesn't have a bomb. Yes, and at the time, if it wants to change it, actually it can't be a surprise for anyone, or it can't do it totally secretly because because intelligence is watching. Yes, so so it will be
Right. Okay. So I'm getting to the closing of the this program. So Dr. Azodi, now let's go beyond this. And we assuming, as I said in my opening also, that possibly this particular direct to direct sort of tit for tat has ended for now. But the disease, if you will, states, which is from where it all started in so many ways, and which is Israeli actions in Gaza and also the occupied Palestinian territories. And of course, Israel's idea to normalize with the Arab states by prescinding Palestinians from that equation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of that is still there and it's boiling. And we now have, of course, this issue of the Israelis going into Rafah, which is only going to further complicate this problem. So, what is your prognosis in terms of how Iran, if not directly, but through its affiliated groups, will react to any further uh, genocidal actions or near genocidal actions, since that issue is now sub judice at the ICJ? If it goes for it, how do you think the situation is going to pan out?
Well, I think that the Iranis have been quite cautious in terms of their actions, in terms of the rhetoric, propaganda, things like that. They've been very active, but in terms of significant actions, they've been relatively restrained, and you can see it in the words of Khamenei himself. That as soon as October 7th attacks, he said we will kiss the hands or the foreheads of the people who did it, but it wasn't us, right? And through many messages, through the Iranian Foreign Ministry, Iran's mission to the United Nations, etc., they announced that they were not behind the attacks because they did not want to get involved their calculation was if that if it if they take action, the United States or the Israelis might come after them. Again, so what I've seen in the past few months is that diplomatically they've been quite active by supporting, for example, South Africa's case at the ICC, or many speeches at the United Nations. But in terms of actions on the ground, I have not seen anything that shows that the Iranians have been active or anything, because at the end of the day, they think about their own survival, and they don't want to do anything that could jeopardize their survival.
Right. So your assessment is that even if the Israeli actions continue in the occupied Palestinian territories and in Gaza, Iran is not going to make any significant moves, even indirectly.
I don't think so. They might support the Houthis in terms of, I don't know, providing with technology or targeting information, as what that spy ship was providing some intelligence to the Houthis, things like that. But not nothing direct, nothing that could provoke the U.S. or the Israelis to take any action. And when you look at the Hezbollah, Iran's main partner in the region, they have had skirmishes with the Israelis, but they have not had, despite some, assessments, they have not had any major conflict with the Israelis. So that's what I've seen, and that's my prediction.
Right. Dr. Gergiieva, do you agree with what Dr. Azodi is saying? Do you think there's a possibility of escalation in southern Lebanon, which is northern Palestine? What if Israel continues to assassinate Hezbollah leaders, commanders in Lebanon? They've already done that. What if Israel does another such strike somewhere against the Iranian assets or interests in Syria? Think that would be cause for escalation?
Of course, I agree with Dr. Azodi. I believe that there is, of course, Iran supports and will support, but it's mostly indirect support. Yes, it can be financial support, technological support, as was mentioned already, but they avoid lately, especially, and will continue to avoid direct confrontation and help, especially after this year's direct confrontation and demonstrating of what each side can do, possible to do. I'm not sure they are going to risk, because as we already mentioned several times, me as well, that Iran is a very cautious country. It's seen in every movement. It's still yes, and in PT, it's still yes. So it's like no need to risk. Of course, their main, maybe one of their main dream is
Right. So you basically agreeing with what Dr. Azodi said.
Yeah.
Very quickly, Dr. Azodi, before I close this, you think? I mean, one of the lessons from the histories of wars is that leaders can sleepwalk into wars. And we've seen this so many times that one can draw a long list, and that's because of imperfect information. That's because of a number of reasons, and of course the fact that one can miscalculate. One can actually think, like Putin, for instance, miscalculated when he went for Kyiv, and then he had to sort of withdraw from there and focus elsewhere. So they think that these are probably Pareto efficient in some way, but that doesn't work. How much of a potential for miscalculation in the Middle East do you think is there?
Oh, a lot. Look, first of all, Iran and the United States hardly talk to each other. They don't have an embassy. So any communication has to go through a third party or Iran's mission to the United Nations. So lack of any diplomatic relationship or direct talks between high-level, officials causes a lot of issue. In 2016, when the American sailors who accidentally entered Iranian waters, Secretary Kerry could directly contact Iran's foreign minister Zarif on his
Yeah, but
cell.
that was a different period where they were talking.
It was a different era. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So in the absence of people talking, there's a lot of risk of miscalculation, and that even applies to the Israelis too. That's even worse, since they don't have, they don't even Iran doesn't even recognize Israel. So there's a lot of possibility for a miscalculation, and also the fact that Iran can rely only on very few countries in the Middle East for relaying its messages. Perhaps only the Turks have been shown to be effective. Omanis have been effective, or the Qataris. Other than that, Iran doesn't have any good relations with anyone. Iraqis to some extent, but other than that, the relationship with that Iran has had historically with its neighbors is not that close. So
Right.
this poses a lot of potential for miscalculation between Iran, Israel, and the United States.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Azodi, Dr. Valeriia Gergiieva. It was great talking to you. This is all from this episode. If you like the discussion, click on the subscribe button. That helps us bring you quality discussions. Until our next episode, goodbye and stay safe.